Joanne McNeish is my guest, a marketing professor at Ryerson University in Toronto. Hey, Joanne, good to see you.
Hey, Todd, how are you?
I'm good. I'm curious how you sort of see this story playing out here. The fact that we've got the ties between the Prime Minister, his personal involvement with the We charity itself under fire. Now some brands are distancing themselves from We. What's your read on what's happening?
Well, there's sort of three different players here. And because it's Friday, I'll just do a little piece of history. It was about 20 years ago, we had another Liberal sponsorship scandal, and the players look remarkably similar, a prime minister and a couple of ministers involved in the situation. I think there's, in terms of the prime minister, his reputation is taking a big hit. This is the third time that he's been involved. I think the Liberal government has been, Liberal Party has been very clever in stepping back, stepping away, and almost, in other words, we've got your back. Justin, and then they're stepping way, way to the back of the room and letting him be the face of this scandal. Unfortunately, I think the big loser in this is going to be We. As you said, a number of people are reconsidering their sponsorships. And people might have reconsidered the sponsorship in light of COVID. Many companies are having to cut back, but this is a perfect firestorm for reputable companies in the midst of a time when the best foot forward, corporate social responsibility, presenting yourself in the best face forward. This is the worst time for a charity to be embroiled in this. The dates are just too coincidental for how quickly they were involved. And in fact, it does appear as if they had unfair advantage in the midst of a government, and governments generally have very good, strict bidding procedures. That process could have been followed, and they might have won the contract anyway. But as a result of this, and the fourth group, the students are affected. There is no program, and the program was announced in April. So it's a shame.
What about the Liberals brand, Joanne? Because as you know, the Liberals often benefit from sort of, the Goldilocks idea. They're not too right, they're not too left, they're in the middle. And now you've got this, as you say, the third ethics scandal tied to this specific prime minister here, and now his finance minister as well. Yep. The damage to brand Liberal, what do you think?
I think actually minimal. Again, this is a very skillful party in terms of how they manage the brand. They're not stepping up to defend him. In other words, the Liberal Party itself has been very quiet. The whole government has been quiet. By the way, there's a third minister implicated in this with some ties to this charity, the Natural Resources Minister. So I think the party has never really, I don't think, embraced Justin Trudeau as one of them. In other words, he was a lovely mascot or a celebrity representative. And I think in this moment, I have some sense that, in fact, they're starting to see him more as a liability than an asset. And I could imagine in a scenario that he's not running for prime minister in the next election, and they're going to work really hard to set themselves up as the party that brought you safely through COVID, not necessarily this prime minister bringing you safely through COVID. So I think minimal damage to the Liberals, much more to the prime minister, big loser, We charity.
I wonder whether you think as well, Joanne, we might see some resignations, or as some of our political commentators have been putting it, people get thrown under the bus.
Yes. Well, you have to decide who you're going to throw under the bus. What these people have done is completely wrong. There is a lovely rule in place in cabinet and in fact in any meeting. When you have a conflict of interest, you need to do two things. State that you have a conflict of interest, and that applies to me in a department meeting I'm in, all the way to the prime minister and the ministers. I have a conflict of interest. This is what it is. By saying it out loud, first of all, you allow people to evaluate the conflict, and then you can choose to recuse yourself, not be part of the discussion. The fact that two ministers and the prime minister chose not to happen to mention this suggests they see themselves as apart from the party, and they really don't understand the privilege that they have. In other words, when we talk about privilege, and the problems with privilege is that you never understand what you did wrong. And I can imagine that certainly the finance minister and the prime minister are shaking their heads thinking, well, what did we really do wrong? They were a good choice. They may have been a good choice. The problem is they did not follow very simple rules. They didn't give the cabinet the chance to evaluate the degree of conflict of interest. Because in a sense, the fact the story got legs is why you say it out loud from the beginning. In fact, that there's always a truth that in fact it's the lying that's the problem, not even sometimes more than the particular situation. In this case, he got caught along with other people in a lie. And will he be asked to resign? No, there's skillful ways that you can encourage people not to run in the next election, would be more my imagination as to what will happen.
Hey, Joanne, good conversation. Thanks for this today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.